Hang tight, everyone. We have one more council member on the way, then we'll get started. So just a few more minutes.
We can let the department present while we wait for a quorum, if you like.
We'll give it 2 more minutes and then we'll. We've been told that Councilmember Lewis is on his way. He'll be here in about 2 minutes, so hang tight. We'll wait for him and we'll have quorum. So thank you all for your patience. All right, everyone. We are ready to get started today. I'm Jason Winston, Chair of the City Utilities meeting. Today is February the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to those who celebrate. To my right, I'm joined by Councilmember Andrea Boone, and to her right, Councilmember Antonio Lewis, and to my left, we have Councilmember Howard Shook. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. So moved. Motion by Lewis, second by Shook. Mr. Johnson, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Thank you. Now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. Got a motion by Shook, second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
Council members, by now you've had an opportunity to receive and give feedback to the 2023 goals and objectives for this year for the City Utilities Committee. I will entertain a motion to adopt those goals and objectives for this year. First, our motion by Councilmember Lewis, a second by Councilmember Boone. And that's electronic vote, correct?
Correct.
Please open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The 2023 City Utilities Goals and Objectives have been adopted.
Thank you. Now we'll open it up for a public comment.
Mr. Chair, we have one speaker, Brother Anthony Muhammad.
Brother Muhammad, the floor is yours.
And the dark matter mama of the cosmos, I command the dark matter mama of the cosmos, as above, as below, who loves her family, you, miseducated Negroes of the 21st century, your dark mother, mama of the cosmos, wants you to return back to your femininity, turn back to your masculinity. She wants you to recognize you are a soulful individual, and you have the will to connect to nature. The Father of the earth wants you, the dark matter people, to know you are the first families of the earth. You're the first royal family of the earth, not Queen Elizabeth and her family. You, the miseducated Negro of the 21st century. The Father wants you to know, and the men's collective, the dark matter men, and all men, that he gives spiritual energy. And you, the dark matter men, can use your mental thoughts and make them into physical manifestation. And the daughters of the earth, you must return back to your femininity. The daughters, you must be of the highest character, the highest quality of valuation. You are the teachers of civilization. Your family tree were the first creators of energy for the benefit of the duality and the polarity of the male and the female. And finally, the sun, S-U-N. The sun, not S-O-N, the sun recognized that you, all humanity, had the power to create. Mr. Dickinson, your administration, Mr. Dickinson, I'm calling on this committee to let's recognize there are people that are living on the street. I'm calling on this committee to recognize as you, Mr. Dickens, Atlanta returned $10 million in emergency rental assistance to the federal government. Atlanta joined the Constitution, said Atlanta loses $4 million federal grant to train low-skilled workers, dark matter people. Mr. Westmoreland said in his first year here, as a representative of his district, Atlanta returned $1.3 million in unspent workforce development money. So I'm calling on you members of this committee, and you dark matter people, be sensitive, be empathetic for your people that continue to don't have access to opportunities like you have found in this Western ideology. We have to be able to come back to our femininity, come back to our masculinity, and represent the will of the holistic valuation of the source and the forest, the holistic valuation 360 degrees. And you have what, 33 degrees, you're allowing our people to suffer. So I ask you, as I close, as I did not greet you, Assalamu alaikum. Ashe, Ashe, and Ashe. May I meet you at hotel?
Thank you, Brother Muhammad. Today, we'll have our first quarterly update by Public Works, joined by Commissioner Al Wiggins. Thank you, Mr. Wiggins.
Good morning, Chairman Winston and committee members. I'm Al Wiggins, Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, and I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present DPW's quarterly report for the second quarter FY23. We'll start out with our priorities and accomplishments. We have several, so I'll just highlight a few that are really relevant. As you know, the Department of Public Works was asked to conduct a street-based and common goods study to evaluate if our fees are commensurate with the services, if our services are commensurate with the fees that we charge to our customers, and if the overall operation is handled efficiently. We anticipate that project will launch March 2023. We're working very closely with the Department of Procurement to get the bid packet completed. April begins the official kickoff of Phase 2 of Operation Clean Sweep. Per the request of this committee, we have beginning the work of bidding out the right-of-way mowing and beautification contract. Initially, we anticipated that work would be completed by the end of this summer. We have new data to use, and we'll begin the process in May of this year. So we were able to get this project off a little bit early. Also, our Smart City Route Management software that this committee approved, which is our vehicle telematics software that will assist us with route optimization and more efficient delivery of our personnel and vehicles. That project will launch May of 2023. Up until that time, we'll be operating in a sandbox environment. Our DPW Operations Command Center has been completed. However, we're waiting on the remaining technology and fixtures to be placed into the command center. We anticipate that the delivery of those items will be in May. Just going back to the command center, this is a area that we will use to monitor the movement of our vehicles and our personnel, also monitoring the surveillance cameras that we use for illegal dumping. Along the lines of completed projects, we have partnered with the solicitor's office. We have hired 2 sworn officers that will be completely dedicated to addressing illegal dumping. We expect good things to come from this partnership. The Department of Public Works used funding for 2 of our vacant code enforcement officer positions and offered the solicitor's office an opportunity to hire 2 officers that will have the ability to effect arrests for illegal dumping crimes. We've also completed our first prototype of our illegal dumping surveillance camera, which will provide a brief snapshot of the final product here later in the presentation. Okay, so next I'd like to introduce Mr. Kentori Garman, who serves as our Performance and Innovation Director. Mr. Garman also provides the leadership of our data analytic team. Mr. Garman will now present on a few of our department-wide performance measure slides.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning to committee chair and committee members. As the Commissioner mentioned, I'm Kentori Garman. I direct the performance management team, or unit, I would say. Consists of a data analytics team, a quality assurance and QC team, a customer service team, and soon to be newly constructed command center team, which we have 6 slots available for that command center. Giving our attention to the first slide, which covers some accomplishments for the QA/QC team. The team has a lead and is currently staffed with 3 specialists to date, with plans to add more specialists, 2 more specialists in the coming weeks or month. The team works on field evaluations conducted, which consist of request types, 311 request, curbside inspection, escalation request, site evaluations, and the vast majority of their work is focused on contractor site evaluations. The team has collectively completed more than 1,000 evaluations since implementation. I would like to stress this is with 3 specialists to date. Once we have those 2 additional specialists, we will be able to do considerably more. Additionally, on that number, nearly 500 of those 1,000 evaluations are contractor evaluations, which you will see shortly. We've seen an improvement from our contractors. The team has also inspected nearly 700 miles of arterial and collector roads. This exceeds the total lane miles of 400. So again, this team is doing great work, leaps and bounds. In the next slide, you'll see that the team scores our contractors having a target of 100%, with 70% considered passing. And as you can see, there is a progression from our contractors from January forward. Contractors are expected to recanvass the non-passing segments within 48 hours of results being provided. The contractors have shown improvement in eval scoring again from January on into February. However, we are looking to drive continued success and consistency throughout 2023. Going into some of the performance metrics at a glance for the department, to your left, you will see that the top 4 requests service types for DPW consist of replacement bins, missed garbage, sweet general, and stolen or missed garbage bins. However, to your right, you will see a steady climb, which is a noted positive trend in SLA performance over the last few months into January 2023 up to date. Additionally, DPW received an estimated 34,000 cases during this time period. As you can see, the progression line will show that. Having successfully closed more than 90% of all cases to date. We're averaging about 3,500 to 4,000 cases monthly. And the next slide, going over some customer service performance. Both graphs show a steady decline in total raw numbers of premature closures and escalated cases and complaints. Of course, our goal is to, have no premature closures or escalations, and we trust that our laser focus on capturing data, we find that what you properly measure tends to improve, and implementation of our fleet vehicle routing software, Rubicon, which the Commissioner mentioned, which will be in the command center, will help to progress this decline and ultimate elimination of escalations, complaints, and premature closures. Additionally, the graph shows that going into the new year, tracking from December to January, that these premature closures, escalations, and complaints have accounted for 1% or less of total cases received, 1% or less. That is a 99% or higher success rate in our handling of those cases. Thank the committee for its time. Any questions or concerns?
We'll do questions at the end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garman. I think it's important to note also, to reiterate the benefit of Rubicon, the telematics software that we recently purchased. Currently, we use a paper-based system that's extremely flawed. We don't have onboard technology that will allow us to address cases or really sign them off in real time, so that will have an impact on our closure rates and our SLAs. We take our SLAs very seriously. It's basically a commitment to our customers of how we will conduct business in a timely way. So we, as Director Garment mentioned, we have laser focus now that we have the data to make critical decisions as it relates to day-to-day operations. We'll continue along the solid waste path. This particular slide, you will see that there was an uptick in the disposal of municipal solid waste / garbage. That is directly tied to seasonal disposal of waste, directly connected to the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday seasons. And you'll see that path along all of the services that we provide, so that's just not unusual. It's important to note that our garbage disposal has decreased. If we do a parallel comparison for Q2 of FY23 and FY22, the actual garbage disposal has decreased by nearly 10%, which is directly correlated to the uptick in recycling, which is about 10%. Our yard trimming disposal has increased by nearly 30%. We're still looking to determine what has caused that uptick in yard trimmings, which is a good thing. As you know, the yard trimmings are taken to our yard trimmings processing site and ultimately is used as an alternative fuel source. So it's great that we're able to repurpose our yard waste. Here's a snapshot of tonnage by service areas. Again, as I mentioned, garbage, recycling, and yard waste increased during the holiday season, and this particular slide will reflect that. Okay, so moving on to our curbside collection performance matrix. There's a direct correlation, obviously, with the amount of cases that we receive and our ability to close them in a timely manner. You will see an uptick in cases really beginning in the July timeframe of 2022. Although we know this particular report is just for the second quarter of FY23, we provided previous months for just context. An increase in solid waste requests during the 2022 holiday season, again, led to the decrease in us being able to close cases in a timely manner. 70% of those cases were closed within SLA from June to December of 2022. To date, 76% of those cases are closed within SLA, which is a 6% increase. We're certainly not touting that we aren't still, our goal is 100% completion, but we are trending in the right direction through improved management practices and our ability to utilize data that's been collected through our data analytic team. Okay, moving on to our special operations team. As you know, our special operations team primarily handles right-of-way maintenance, the delivery of trash receptacles, and bulk pickups. And we've seen a significant improvements in closed cases within SLA. We're up to 81% as of last month. As of June, cases closed within SLA were at 46%. So you will see the blue line that we're trending upward and in the right direction. Since August of 2022, the total number of cases have decreased by 54%. As a result, the cases closed within SLA increased by 74%. So this has a direct correlation with the right sizing of staffing during that particular time. We just simply weren't staffed to be able to respond to the demand during that time. Again, I'd like to reiterate our goal is 100% compliance. I'm confident that by the time that we fully implement the command center, that we will be very close to 100%. Moving on to special events, you'll see in October of 2022, DPW assisted with the Pride Parade. We allocated 43 staff members, approximately 300 work hours, and collected nearly 3 tons of litter and garbage. Along the lines of the Peach Bowl Parade, we allocated 35 team members, approximately 500 hours were worked, and we collected approximately 3 tons of litter and debris for that event as well. Okay, moving on to solid waste education and enforcement, also known as SWEET. The team conducted over 1,500 inspections during this particular reporting period, investigated 221 dump sites and 771 illegal dumping sites. So I like to make the distinction between the dump site inspections and the illegal dumping inspections. The dump site inspections are simply areas where we experience reoccurring issues of illegal dumping. Again, with the hiring of the 2 sworn officers and the surveillance cameras that our fleet division has completed the prototype on, I'm confident that we will see a significant decline in illegal dumping cases. I think it's also important to note that the SWEET division conducted 866 investigations that they received from ATL 311. Okay, so SWEET performance metrics, they experienced a 41% increase in the total number of cases from June to August, which again led to a decrease in SLAs. They are not currently fully staffed. We recently hired a SWEET supervisor who's doing great things, handling issues according to priority, and she's building a team around her that I'm confident that very soon that will be fully staffed and operational. So going back a bit into last quarter, the cases closed with an SLA increased by 40% from August to December. Again, a direct correlation with the amount of cases received and also the onboarding of our new code enforcement supervisor. Just looking ahead a little bit, we saw a 27% rise in SLA performance, which had decreased in December. On to Operation Clean Sweep. You'll see that we swept over 6,800 lane miles of roadway, over 30,000 receptacles, again, 559 illegal dumping sites that were connected directly to SWEET, and about 88 tons of litter were collected during this time frame. The volunteer-based metrics that you'll see on your left-hand side, we had a total of 32 volunteers that provided about 80 volunteer hours, and they collected about a ton of litter throughout the 8 miles that they service. Our strategy for using volunteers are for one-time projects or special projects. As you know, they're volunteers, so they're not paid. So their commitment is to their primary employer, obviously. So at times they're not able to make their commitment, even though they have great intentions. So our strategy is to use them in areas where it does not involve scheduled maintenance. Okay, so here you'll see a citywide road assessment that was conducted by the Department of Public Works. We began this project back in the spring of 2021. We inspected over 400 lane miles of right-of-way using the following scoring criteria. 1 indicates that there was not a presence of litter or overgrown vegetation. 2 shows there was a low presence. 3, medium, and 4, it was a high presence. The overall score citywide in all categories has improved. Along our arterial roads, the litter score improved by ½ a point, and the overgrown vegetation by over 1 point. Our collector streets, as it relates to litter, there's been an increase of about 0.3 of a point. And as it relates to overgrown vegetation, it improved about ½ a point. That does not seem like we moved the needle very much, but I will tell you, to achieve that those type of results requires a tremendous amount of effort and just really the rearranging of scheduling and the logistics of deploying vehicles. In this slide, you will see a few photos of our command center. Again, the command center has been completely built out, but we're still waiting on the remaining technology to occupy that command center. On the left-hand side, you will see the surveillance cameras that this is the first prototype that was hand-built by our Office of Fleet Services. I'm very proud of what they've been able to accomplish. This trailer exceeds the specification of a trailer that we purchased through a commercial manufacturer. The camera resolution, the design of the trailer far exceeds the design of that trailer that we purchased last year. And we are able to build that trailer for under half the cost of what we purchased the commercial trailer for. Okay, in bulk collections, I am proud to say that our team has been able to really streamline this service. Currently, we're able to provide same-week service. We now have increased our bandwidth to really serve twice the amount that we were really providing before. So I'm very proud of the work that was done by this team. As you know, we had some pretty significant struggles with getting that service operating to the level of efficiency that we would like to, but now we have exceeded our expectations. Okay, moving on to the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission. The KABC still strives to work with the community on programs with delittering and cleanup efforts. Through neighborhood engagement, KABC assisted over 700 volunteers with neighborhood cleanups, and that was just for last quarter. Okay, moving on to the Office of Fleet Service. Again, our goal is to always ensure that we meet our commitments as it relates to the repair of vehicles. The citywide standard is to ensure that all vehicles are repaired within 2 weeks, and that sounds like a very low goal, but considering the availability of parts associated with the national parts shortage and just a wide range of vehicle repairs, 2 weeks is the standard that we use. Of course, our public safety vehicles and our mission-critical vehicles receive priority, and our goal is to get them out back into service immediately. If you look at the chart, you'll see a steady improvement to the tune of an average of 3% each quarter, and the goal is 90%, so we've fallen short of that goal just by 4%. Our new Director of Fleet Services, Mr. Craig Mims, has been working diligently with his team and bringing on new mechanics. I think that they're doing great work considering that they're only 70% staff and meeting that goal. Okay, this slide just details the number of wrench hours is what we call it, the actual amount of time that we spend working on vehicles. This illustrates the time that we spend by department, APD being the lead department, followed by DPW and the Department of Watershed. Okay, as it relates to vehicle readiness, again, our target is 90%. If you look at the slide, we had fallen just short of that the third quarter of FY22. For this particular reporting period, we exceeded that goal by 1%. We anticipate through the onboarding of additional technicians that we could safely meet the 100% mark. Here's a fleet replacement program that shows the vehicles and the actual cost of vehicle replacements by department. Here's a vehicle preventative maintenance program, a few metrics involving that service. All right, so moving on to human resources, you'll see our revised org chart that reflects a few positions that we have added, such as the performance of innovation. You just heard from Mr. Kentori Garman, who leads that team. All right, so our departmental staffing scorecard, overall, DPW, we're about 77% staff. The Office of the Commissioner, we're about 75% staff. And the Office of Solid Waste Services is about 80%. I believe currently we are well above that number. As you know, particularly in the Office of Solid Waste Services, because the work is so demanding and the manual labor, we experience significant turnover to somewhere in the tune of 7%, 7 to 10% for our solid waste workers. Our Office of Fleet Services, as I mentioned earlier, they're about 70% staff. I will say DHR Commissioner Smith has hit the ground running. She has offered her assistance in getting DPW up to our staffing requirements, and in that effort, she's been very successful. I've also worked with the Chief Procurement Officer through the DHR Commissioner to identify a firm that will assist with recruiting technicians. That is a very difficult position to fill, skilled technicians at this time. Not only are we competing with other governmental agencies, we're competing with the private sector. So our folks aren't necessarily trained to recruit for those particular professions, although they have done a great job with the resources that they have. But we do need the assistance of an outside recruitment firm. Okay, so here you'll see our finance slide. As you know, the general fund account was recently created as a result of us bifurcating some of the services that were performed in our solid waste division. You'll see that we have just began using that account, and we have like under about 0.4% that's been spent in the general fund account. You'll begin to see the expenditures for that account increase. But overall, if you look at the accounts collectively, we're tracking commensurate where we are in this particular time of the year. Okay, so our safety team, as we discussed before, they provide CDL training. We're very proud of this program. This program really helps to augment our workforce of drivers, which is another job that's very difficult to fill. And so we, during this particular quarter, 29 students have been in classroom training. So far, 17 of those students have received their permits. 13 students participated in the road skills training and testing program. And out of those 13 students, 10 of them have received their CDL. And that's just for this particular quarter. So we're very proud of that program. All right, you'll see that the safety team logged in about 588 training hours for this particular reporting period. They offer a wide range of courses. However, defensive driving is where we put our biggest time investment, just for the simple fact of the life safety component. All right, so our safety division, I asked them to begin tracking accidents by accidents that are preventable and non-preventable accidents. We had a total of 27 accidents, and we identified those accidents as 21 of those accidents as preventable. We have a very strict standard that we implement. So we, again, use defensive driving as one tool, but the safety team is really good about providing the training really specific to the nature of the accident and coaching our drivers to prevent any future occurrences. All right, moving on to my favorite part of the presentation, we have our frontline heroes. Next, we have Mr. Jerry Parks, who served 45 years with the Department of Public Works, which is remarkable. Mr. Parks worked faithfully for the city of Atlanta up to his very last day. His leadership, his work ethic, his overall commitment is unmatched, and it's a tremendous loss to our team, but we wish him well in his retirement. Before I conclude, I would like to send a huge shout out to the women and men of DPW who work so hard on a day-to-day basis to keep our city intact and really allow me to provide this information, this great information that I'm sharing with you today. So go team. That concludes my presentation. Should you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. And before I open it up for questions, I want to note that we've been joined by a very unlucky juror and Councilmember Dozier, who has joined us. And then at this time, I'll open it up for questions from my colleagues. 1 second. We'll start with Councilmember Dozier, who has joined us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm always happy to be with you all on committee day, so lucky or unlucky. And thank you, Commissioner Wiggins, and happy Valentine's Day. Just have a few questions. The first one is something that is I get a lot of questions about from my constituents because it was a very popular program when y'all were implementing the pilot phase. But I'm curious to know where things are going with the camera program that y'all been working diligently to
It's a great question.
operationalize.
So we finished our first prototype. Our intentions, we have our trailers built out to outfit 12 additional cameras. We're working with the Department of Procurement to source the additional cameras that are needed. So we're ready to go, but we anticipate by the end of March that we will have a vendor selected to provide those cameras. And once those cameras are delivered to the Office of Fleet Service, we can have those cameras outfitted in 48 hours or less.
How many more cameras will that be?
So we will construct 12 cameras in-house. We have already purchased 12, and just depending on the success of the 12 trailers, again, we want to learn. This is really almost an R&D project, but so far we have not found any glitches. The trailers are working well, but if the success continues, we would like to fabricate at least 12 additional trailers.
Thank you. I also was curious about the trash and litter data that you compile with the overgrown vegetation, with the different corridors. I'm curious, how is that data compiled? Is it y'all have folks going down different routes and marking scores of, hey, there's a lot of trash here, there's a lot of overgrowth here? And I noticed too, the map showed corridors, but I know many of our communities, it can be very different from block to block. And I don't know if that's reflected in that data. Maybe Ralph David Abernathy is fine from Murphy to Joseph E. Lowry, and then from there is different. I don't know if y'all are looking at that as well.
No, that's a great question. So we have scores from our safety team, our code enforcement team, and we have a driver and we have a score that performs the evaluation of the area using the criteria that I just described. The map that you just spoke about shows the priority roads that were identified out of the inspection. So we identified 7 roads. The selection criteria was that we wanted to identify roads that went through several council districts, just to ensure, again, the goal of OCS is to ensure uniform appearance throughout the city, and ensuring that we found arterial roads and collector streets that actually went through several council districts would be the best way of handling that particular exercise. So that data is collected. Moving forward, we're going to score those roads on a quarterly basis. We structured this program to mirror a program that is administered by Keep America Beautiful. As you know, the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission is an official affiliate of KABC, and one of the requirements is that we participate in a program that's called the Community Appearance Index. And so the scoring criteria that we use for that particular program, we decided to mirror that criteria for our independent inspection. And the reason that we decided to do our own inspection is that the roads that were evaluated under that program were a sampling of each council district, as opposed to our strategy is inspecting all of our arterial roads and all of the collector streets, which covered a larger area. Did that address
Yes,
your
it
question?
did. Thank you.
Okay.
And then I just had a couple questions around the staffing piece. You know, those 71, 75, 80% staffing numbers. I know we've talked about that, at least in the 13 months since I've been on council. I know that's come up with every department across the city. I'm curious if y'all have looked at how we're doing compared to sister jurisdictions, if DeKalb County, for instance, like what the numbers look like now. I know they're struggling, but how much more or less are they struggling compared to us? And are there any lessons learned that we can take to?
That's another great question. So just through casual conversation and me speaking with my colleagues, I feel like we have been much more successful than other jurisdictions, not only in recruiting staff members, really recruiting staff members that are well qualified to perform the duties of their respective roles. I don't have the data to support that, but I'm confident that Atlanta has really had the ability to recruit candidates from other jurisdictions. So, again, working with DHR Commissioner Smith, I expect for those numbers to improve.
Mr. Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Next, Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you as well, Mr. Wiggins. You make me look good in my district. I will say that. I know when we came here, my first council meeting, I said, hey, you're embarrassing me when I go to the barbershop because the overgrowth is horrible, and they see the council members sitting there looking at it as well. So I will say that you make me look good in my district, and I appreciate you for the service that you've been doing, being so attentive and so intentional for everything we need, coming out, meeting neighborhood chairs, spending hours driving around, making sure that everybody comes out. I appreciate you for that. And I still hold the right to criticize you, right? And so now on page 20, I know I was looking at the red lines. I was looking for a map key because I didn't see one. But I see a lot of red lines in District 12. So I want to know is there a way you and I can sit down and we can turn those red lines green?
Unfortunately, Councilmember Lewis, I don't have my pages numbered.
That's the citywide road assessment, vegetation and litter assessment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. So
You and I can sit down and we can turn these green because you're a jewel. I know what we got in you, so I want to see if we can do this.
yeah, that is certainly the intent. And, again, we have scoring for every road segment in your district that's a collector or an arterial street. And so we really use the data to understand where our priorities are and where to send our resources. Of course, we have a finite amount of resources, and so we have to deploy those resources in a way that would achieve the greatest impact. But if there's a particular area in your district, so the red lines indicate areas that really require our attention. Green are areas that we're fairly confident with, and yellow obviously are areas that we're concerned with because they could go either way.
In this sheet, the only red areas are in my district and Councilmember Boone's district. And so I think, and it's not that many, so I know, I can see the improvement. I can't wait till you and I sit down. We're going to turn these green. I know it's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
I'm inspired by seeing it. Next, on page 34, we talked about the positions that you're filling. Thank you for getting that. I know where it was when we started, right? And so I'm seeing the improvements by people actually getting jobs. My question on that is, do you think that a office like Office of Solid Waste Service, the city of Atlanta has grown tenfold since we set up that office, and when we think about the positions that we have allocated for that position. And so do you think it's time that it grows by 50, like that it goes from 350 plus 83 vacant, plus can we add 50 positions? Do you think that the city of Atlanta, it's time that we look at and analyze these positions and say, hey, solid waste, for everything we're building, when we think about all the new development going on in the city, is it time that we grow our worker base with our city?
Well, Councilmember Lewis, it's certainly time for us to take a look at that, and we'll do that through the street-based and common good sanitary services study that I referenced earlier, and we anticipate that project will launch here in March. So we anticipate that the study should take at least 90 days to complete, but upon completion of that study, we'll have a specific number as it
I'm a
relates.
data's guy. I'm a numbers guy, full out. And so I'm just looking at the way the city has grown. I'm hopeful that it's 50+ positions. I'm hopeful it's not 4 positions for some of the stuff that we're doing. I'm hoping it's new. I know yesterday we passed a paper to pay $60,000 per car for police. I'm hoping that you get some new equipment to manage as well, because the city's growing, and my district actually has the most development going on in the city of Atlanta. And so I just want to make sure that we're able to service people as we do that. And lastly, Mr. Jerry Parks, I want to say thank you for 45 years of service if you're watching. And my request to you is, how do we celebrate him? Myself and Councilmember Bone, we were sitting here asking, did y'all give him a proclamation? Did y'all have a luncheon for him? How can we be a part of that?
Well, that's a great question, Councilmember Lewis. We put on a parade for Mr. Parks, and we shut down a portion of Memorial Drive, and I hope that we did it legally, and if not, we apologize. But we gave him a king send-off, and we got every vehicle in the fleet of the facility that he worked at, participating in that parade. So we did give him a king send-off.
Once again, I appreciate you for making me look good in District 12. I get on MPU calls, I get on neighborhood calls, and the first thing they say is my right-of-ways look better than they ever looked in the history. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Next, we have questions from Councilmember Shook.
Yeah, thank you. So just a couple big picture questions and observations. Boy, all these metrics are headed in the right direction. You know, most are significantly improved thanks to the initiatives that you've undertaken. So I just want that recognized here, because things aren't always as touchy-feely here. Would I be right in saying that what's holding you back from getting to the top of the mountain in general are the vacancies that you're struggling to fill, which are still, I can see you're gaining people, but obviously people are trading out, and kudos to Mr. Parks for a phenomenal record of service. And if that is kind of what's going to keep you from getting to the summit, is that a marketplace competition issue?
So Councilmember Shook, there's an interesting dynamic as it relates to our staffing position and our efforts to move towards automation. So we recently conducted a study that shows that 90% of our city can be canvassed through the use of the automated side loader trucks. Currently, our crew configuration is a 3-person crew, and transitioning through that automated side loader truck is operated by an independent operator. Some locations we may need an additional worker on that truck to help spot in tight areas. To go further, the 10% of the city that the firm identified as areas that we may not be able to canvass with the automated side loaders, we recently worked with a equipment manufacturer that has a smaller vehicle that's an automated vehicle that we may be able to utilize for the remaining 10% of the city. So certainly, to answer your question, it's a very long answer. Currently, of course, if we had additional staff members, that we certainly would be able to provide better numbers. But we're also challenged with equipment failure. So even on days where we are fully staffed, the fragility of our equipment does not always provide for the consistency that we would like. But of course, if we did have additional staff members, the numbers would improve, but not comprehensively.
All right, that's interesting. So we're seeing a lot of, regarding illegal dumpings, a lot of inspections, a lot of investigations. You're aggressively moving forward with your camera program, and you breezed through it pretty quickly, so forgive me if I miss it. Is any of that resulting in citations?
So the interesting thing about the camera is that it has not really served as much of a tool to identify illegal dumping violators. It served as more of a deterrent. But we have captured footage I don't have that information available today. Well, I would have to get back with you on the amount of citations that were written connected with the surveillance trailers. But the primary use of that trailer serves as a deterrent and has an audible message. It has a flashing strobe light. The camera has technology that will actually follow a person as it walks. And so as they get near the camera, it sees the camera actually transitioning with their movement. So it serves as a great deterrent.
My takeaway from all this activity and emphasis is it demonstrates to the public that you're very acutely aware of the problem. What I'm always going to be looking for, though, is equal evidence that we're determined to hold people accountable. And unless we get to that next step, they're just going to keep dumping it, maybe in a place where they know there's not a camera. If they spend a night in jail, I'll bet that's the last time they do it, at least in the city.
That's a great point, and that was a reason that we made a huge push towards utilizing the funding for 2 of our vacant code enforcement officer positions towards providing a sworn officer, because we simply don't have the authority to make an arrest. And some illegal dumping crimes often reach the level of a felony, whether it's because of the amount of materials that are dumped or if the materials are some type of hazardous material, it may constitute a felony.
All right. I just, I'm always going to be hoping to get there because, it's a crime. Talk about diminution of quality of life. Talk about sending the wrong message. Talk about making people think they really aren't happy with where they live, and it just seems like it just goes on and on and on and on. And would be, I'm not saying we catch a couple people and draw and quarter them, but I will keep hoping that we see some behavior changing action. But anyway, good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shook. Next, we'll have Councilmember Andrea Boone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Just next time, invite us to the party for the gentleman that's been here 46 years. That is really, really a true milestone, and we would definitely like to do something for him. That's just wonderful. But I would like to commend your team, Deputy Commissioner Anu, Ms. Kanika Greenlee, Ms. Tracy Chambers, Mr. Moses, for responding to the citizens of the community. They take the time to return calls and just have done a tremendous job on Fairburn, Bakers Ferry, Peyton Road, and most of Southwest Atlanta. So for that, I just want to commend them for being who they are and taking the time to return those calls that sometimes don't seem as serious, but if it's serious to the citizen, it's serious to them. So thank you all for being dedicated and diligent servants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone. I did want to finish up with a few questions of my own. Really excited to see that you have Mr. Garment on board as we start looking at quality inspections and quality control, especially as it pertains to our vendors. I like the numbers that I'm seeing from our vendors, but my question is around how do we, and what's the process of rectifying the issues that we're still seeing? So the quality assurance person comes out, they see an issue. What's the next step?
So the vendor is given an opportunity to correct that violation within a 48-hour time period. And if it's not corrected, they simply just won't be paid for that particular service.
Okay. So basically, withholding pay, they have to rectify the situation within 48 hours.
That's correct.
Okay. One other thing, I know that we've been increasing a lot of the bulk pickup, and I'm really enjoying a lot of the progress that I'm seeing. My district, and I'll just give an example, butts up against Councilmember Lewis's district, and some of the issues that I have seen have been around turnovers in homes, renters leaving, or we have homeowners that still just really aren't aware of the process for scheduling bulk pickup. So a lot of items sit on the right of way for a long time, but you can see that they were put there intentionally, not necessarily from an illegal dumping standpoint, but just that they aren't aware of how to get them picked up. So are we doing anything proactively to kind of go out and fix some of those situations?
Yes, so the answer is yes. Ms. Ebony Jefferson, our new suite manager, is looking at that from a public education component. You're absolutely correct. It's not a violation, but they have to initiate the call. Oftentimes, our curbside collections team will see the items on the roadside for an extended period of time, and they will call in that complaint. But really, for them to be able to do that really takes away time from them to be able to complete the route. These routes are very tight, so 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there really takes their ability away to get the work completed. So the solid waste education and enforcement team will really drill down on those areas. And also the QA/QC team, they perform audits of all of our services. Just depending on the service determines the extent of the audit. Right now, much of our focus is getting our right-of-way maintenance vendors on par with our contract standards. Following that, obviously, will be our curbside collection services, and that includes the bulk pickup service as well.
Okay, and would you also encourage the public to, report bulk pickup for neighbors, in the case that maybe they aren't aware of the process?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what we always have to keep in mind is that each household is limited to 12 bulk up pickups a year, which is very generous, by the way. But I will get with our comms team to make sure that we put that message out on social media as a reminder, and also engage our NPU representatives as well.
Okay. And then just to kind of, dive more into the camera deployment, obviously I've seen, what a change they can make in the community and how great they are. But the reality is we're basically playing whack-a-mole, especially in some of the areas that have rampant illegal dumping. We put a camera there, we see the numbers of illegal dumping go down. We move that camera, we see it go back up. And just to, just kind of reiterate what Councilmember Shook said, unless we have some real enforcement or there's some real consequences in terms of the illegal dumping, we just continue down this cycle of seeing it, especially in areas where we've had some systemic issues in terms of illegal dumping. So, I just want to be the second voice, and to say, I really hope that we figure out a way to really dive into the enforcement of it.
Yes, sir. We're really hoping that the hiring of these sworn officers would deter that behavior. Once we publicize that we've been able to prosecute illegal dumping violators, I think that will deter that type of behavior.
Okay, and then last question for me, looking at the budget as it pertains to the fleet services, we're at about 55% of the budget so far year to date, fiscal year to date. So I'm curious to know, if we don't exhaust those funds, or if we do, or is it more for maintenance, or is there an opportunity there to look into upgrading the fleet as well?
So, the fleet budget is not really connected, if I understood your question correctly, to capital purchases. That's borne from each department.
Okay.
But keep in mind that wherever we are in this particular period of the budget cycle, we do have seasonal expenses. So that number can go up or go down. Traditionally, with fleet services, towards the end of the year, we're pretty much tracking at that 90 to 100% level, just based on where we are at that particular time.
Okay, so you fully expect to exhaust the budget?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right. That was the last question for me. I see we have one more from Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question to follow up on the conversation around bulk pickup. This is completely anecdotal. I know anecdotes aren't data, but I do have at least two different constituents that have been reluctant to call in neighbors' bulk issues because they're afraid of running against their 12 bulk pickup cap. And I'm curious if you know offhand how many households come up against that cap, and if it's not many, then maybe it'd be worth considering removing it entirely to encourage more people to use the system, if that's a limitation.
Yeah, so Ms. Greenlee just shared with me the average household uses about 4 bulk pickups a year. And so I think to address the issue with a constituent that's apprehensive about calling in about a neighboring property is to just call in the 311 and say that there are items that have been at the curbside for an extended period of time. And our SWEET team will take a look into what's the proper resolution for that matter.
And that's typically what we've recommended to them. I just want people to feel good about calling in general, and I think that's a bigger barrier for a lot of folks. They call me or my colleagues versus using the systems that we have, but just thinking through maybe what could potentially be roadblocks for other families across the city.
And I just would like to add one other thing. And so we really look at these cases by area and zip code. And so, Chair Winston, the 30315 zip code is within your district. And so we're doing a drill down on that area. The data analytics team will soon begin developing reports based on activity that occur in each of the council members' respective district, because each district has its unique challenges, as you know. But in the 30315 zip code particularly, we do have a challenge with bulk pickup requests not being properly submitted.
Thank you, and that was my last question.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions from my colleagues? Well, I just also want to say, thank you to the women and men of DPW for the tremendous work and dedication to the city of Atlanta. You all have been doing so much, so great in terms of the service, the level of service for the city. We are talking night and day from last year when we all, especially the new council members that came in terms of, where we are with the level of service. So I just want to just say thank you all for your tremendous work.
Thank you.
Now we'll go into our legislative items. Mr. Johnson, if you don't mind, sounding the items for first read.
Section H, ordinance for first reading. Item number 1, 2023-01098, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget an amount of $1,050,000.00, the transfer fund from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the annual supervisory control and data maintenance project and for other purposes. Item number 2, 2023-01099, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with Agreement FC 8919, annual contract for security guard services with Thorpe Building Services Incorporated, All-in-One Security Services Incorporated joint venture, beginning March 13, 2023, through the execution of the Third Amendment, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Third Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management and the Department of Public Works for the second extension of the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 9 months, retroactively effective from March 13, 2023 through December 13, 2023, in the amount not to exceed $5,432,087.88, subject to and expressly contingent upon the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 budget. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now we'll sound our items for second read. I have item number 3.
Item number 3, 2023-01064, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with Agreement FC 10244A, annual contract for stormwater upgrade and repair services beginning February 6, 2023, until the Fourth Amendment is executed, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise the Fourth Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management, to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 6 months retroactively from February 6, 2023 through August 6, 2023, in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Mahoyer.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the council. My name is Alex Mahajer, Deputy Commissioner, Office of the Watershed Protection. This is to request authorization for a month-to-month extension to the existing contract agreement. The stormwater annual construction contract is to enhance the current stormwater collection system, The scope includes construction, cleaning, inspection, and repair of the city's stormwater system, as well as green infrastructure. The overall objective is to improve the collection and conveyance system to avoid water ponding and flooding the streets and improving the water quality in our creeks. The funding is the municipal operation sales tax is utilized with no changes in the contract value, and the current balance is approximately $7 million. This will provide continuity of services while a new annual contract for stormwater is solicited. The request extends the terms of the existing agreement monthly from February 6, 2023, for a period of no more than 6 months, with a final expiration date of August 7, 2023.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion, receive the motion from Councilmember Shook, a second by Councilmember Boone. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Johnson, we'll move on to resolutions. If you could please sound item number 4.
Item number 4 is 23R3169, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for RFPS 1230160, Program Management Services Team with blank on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $24,000,000.00, subject to and expressly contingent upon the approval of budgets for FY 2024, FY 2025, and FY 2026. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes, and the department requests that this item be held.
Yes, colleagues, so we are still waiting on the iPro report here, so there is a request to hold this item. We have a motion to hold by Councilmember Shook, a second by Dozier. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. Mr. Chair, we have one item coming off held today. That item is item number 7, 22R4578, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for IFBC 1220308, Outdoor Activities Center Green Infrastructure Project with Res Environmental Operating Company, LLC, on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term to commence from the date a notice to proceed is issued for a period of 9 months, in the amount not to exceed $1,300,000, $1,300,614.63. All services will be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And the department requests that this item be filed.
Colleagues, any questions or comments about the request to file? We have a motion by Councilmember Shook. I have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Boone. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is filed.
I believe that is the end of our legislative items for today.
Yes, Mr.
Colleagues, you do have a report that you all have in your possession that was the public right-of-ways, the updated manual. Wanted to see if anyone had any questions today about the report that you've received? Or did anyone from the department wanted to speak on this? All right, seeing. What do you mean? Like, do you have any questions?
What kind of? To make sure
Councilman Lewis.
transparency is key in city council, so they want to know what we're talking about right now. So when he said, do we have questions, I will say that on page 20, when I spoke to Mr. Wiggins earlier, the street that has the most red lines for me are state routes. And you can literally see them. Jonesboro Road, And so my questions would be, and I don't know if this is the right time for that question because no one is here to actually answer them. How can we get the state to partner up with our folks to actually get that done? Because I just want to see these red lines turn green and my orange lines, red turn orange and orange turn green. And then hopefully in 3 months, 6 months, all of them be green in my district as well.
So, Councilmember Lewis, another great question. So the Jonesboro Road, for an example, those areas our team has included in their rotation. Just because they're high-profile roads, our citizens don't care if it's a state route or not. The state's strategy for dealing with state roads may have this transposed.
Sorry, Commissioner Wiggins, we can't hear you if you don't mind speaking to the mic.
Yeah, the state strategy for dealing with their roadways, and that may have this transposed, is I believe it's 30 days for state routes and 45 days for interstate exchanges. I may have that transposed, but it's either a 30 or 45-day cycle. I will say that we have identified roadways where they have challenges with meeting that obligation. Back to your question, is our strategy is that all arterial roads are handled twice a month. And so that may be directly related to that red line, the presence of litter. It more than likely is. So again, that's where we're deploying our resources. Through a partnership with Invest Atlanta, we launched a workforce development program where we had workers to come out and assist in those problematic areas.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you, Chair, for being so open to me, not even knowing the question I want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, now open it up for any general remarks before we adjourn. Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind the general public that Community Development and Human Services Committee is meeting today. However, we're meeting at a different time at 12:30, so we pushed everything to the left by 1 hour, and I hope to see folks back in this committee room for that meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Dozier. Councilmember Lewis.
I want to invite everybody out to the State of the District, District 12, this Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m. at Atlanta Metropolitan State College. I look forward to seeing folks come out to actually hear about what things are going on. Myself and every elected official that touches District 12. That's our county commissioners, that's our state reps, our state senators. They will all be there. It starts off as a State of the District, first hour, second hour turns into a town hall. So come get those questions answered and come have a little fun. And free food will be there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, happy Valentine's Day to those that celebrate. We stand adjourned. Thank you.